question of love? Is it a state of mind? No, 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 no. It's a question of, it's a question of, it's a question of, it's a question of temperature, yeah. I wake up in the morning, go to sleep at night with the fever, yeah. She says I won't hang you up, and I said, baby, I believe you. Sure. Is it a question of love? Is it a state of mind? No, 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 no. It's a question of, it's a question of, it's a question of, it's a question of temperature, yeah. Like it is, girl, you gotta keep your distance, cause the doctor says I got a very low resistance. Non-stop elevator pushing to the top. No second chance for a temperature drop. Is it a question of love? Is it a state of mind? No, 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 no. It's a question of, it's a question of, it's a question of, it's a question of temperature, yeah. Oh, don't wanna set me on fire. You know that's plain. Don't wanna set me on fire.
iTunes Radio reminds you, Strange Brews, the show of your choice.
Hello and welcome to the Strange Brew podcast. My name's Jason Barnard, and that was Balloon Farm and A Question of Temperature, a single in the US in 1967, because we're featuring highlights from the new Grapefruit Cherry Red box set, March of the Flower Children, The American Sounds of 1967. And as ever, I've got the compiler of that wonderful set, David Wells, here. Huge welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Jason.
Such a brilliant period to mine, and the US scene quite diverse, because you've got a range of sounds here, from that bit of psychedelia, bit of garage rock, bit of folk, sunshine stuff. So you've got a real soundtrack to that wonderful sort of summer of love.
That's right, yes. The idea really was to take 1967 and not necessarily just the hippie, underground, psychedelic stuff, but to look at the overall year and to include things like sunshine pop and, I say, the garage punk and singer-songwriter as well. So I think we've got Tim Buckley on there and Tim Hardin, I think. So yeah, it's just what I think most collectors would consider to be cool sounds from that year.
We started it off so brightly with Balloon Farm, Question of Temperature. They really have thrown the kitchen sink at this one.
Yeah, it was a top 40 hit in America. I think Mike Appel was the leader. He went on to write songs for the Partridge Family and then handled Bruce Springsteen for the first couple of albums as well. So he did have some kind of wider input to the music scene, really, but this was kind of his big moment, if you like. I think he said that they used the theremin on it after it had been used on Good Vibrations, but the sound is completely unlike Good Vibrations.
Was there a link with Melanie's manager as well?
Yeah, Melanie's manager come husband, I believe. And he'd given them a chance to record with him, and they came up with A Question of Temperature. And as I say, it was a top 40 hit, which we tend to overlook these days, really, when we're talking about what we consider to be nuggets, etc., etc. So yeah, Balloon Farm was a fairly decent-sized hit, and I think later on we got 13th Floor Elevators and The Seeds, both of whom had hits as well. So it wasn't just a kind of cultish thing.
And not only have you got hits by artists that some of us may not be as familiar with, you've got some of those major names of the scene and one of those is the Monkees, and we've got I think this is the cancelled single version of She Hangs Out, haven't we?
Yeah, initially it was intended to be a B-side, or at least Don Kirshner intended it to be a B-side of A Little Bit Me, A Little Bit You. But by then the Monkees were Mike Nesmith in particular, were agitating about not being allowed to play on their own records, and they insisted that a Nesmith song was on the B-side. I think the original She Hangs Out did sneak out in Canada as the B-side, but then it was scrapped, and the Monkees later in the year, when they got kind of full control, they re-recorded it themselves without the aid of session men, but this is the original session man version with the only Monkee involved is Davy Jones on lead vocals.
And as we often see with the Monkees, there's a real songwriting pedigree behind that track.
That's right, yes. Obviously the Monkees did have people like Boyce and Hart and Neil Diamond writing songs for them. This was written by Jeff Barry and I think Ellie Greenwich, although she wasn't initially credited, but I mean, lyrically it is a bit under the arm, as we say. It's quite a leering lead vocal from Davy Jones about a young groupie, but probably best not to go into that too much.
So now we have Mothers of Invention and Why Don't You Do Me Right? And this is the Mothers version or attempt to do something that was radio friendly?
Apparently so, yeah. I mean, we are moving from the sublime to the ridiculous, but we do that quite a lot on this set, actually. So, yeah, the Mothers of Invention, they're waiting for the second album to come out. And they went back in the studio to record a couple of songs that Frank Zappa thought idiot songs for an idiot audience or something along those lines anyway, that he was a bit scathing about the idea of writing pop hits, but he came up with Why Don't You Do Me Right, which is actually quite a commercial song, and Big Leg Emma's on the other side. So Why Don't You Do Me Right, yeah, it was commercial enough to be covered by alternative TV in the late 70s. But yeah, the idea of the Mothers of Invention having a hit record probably wasn't really going to happen. But this is a good 3 minutes pop song, really, at heart.
Why don't you do me right? Why uptight. Why don't you do me right? You got me begging on my knees. You got me begging on my knees. You got me begging on my knees, saying, baby, please come back to me. I know you're trying to wreck my life. I know you're trying to wreck my life. I know you're trying to wreck my life, and all I wanted was a wife. I know you're trying to wreck my life. Now what you trying to do? Now what you trying to do? Now what you trying to do? I've been true to you. Now what you trying to do? Pulled up tight, why don't you do it right? But baby, I think I love you. But baby, I think I love you. Baby, why don't you do me right? Why don't you do me right? Why don't you do me right? I wanna bug you all night. Why don't you do me right?
Next we have Blue Things and You Can Live in Our Tree. And were they the Midwest area?
They are from Kansas, yeah. Initially, they were kind of like a folk rocky Beau Brummels, Bird style British Invasion band, but by the time of this single in May '67, they'd obviously indulged in a few substances, I would imagine. And You Can Live in Our Tree is completely out of its tree, really. And it is a sort of thing you think, well, why would RCA think that was a hit record? But clearly they did, and it came out and didn't get anywhere.
I mean, that was the wonderful thing about 1967. You'd get labels releasing all sorts of curveballs in an attempt to get a hit.
Yeah, I think we tend to look back and think of like the indie labels having a little bit of success and then the majors picking up on more obscure stuff and making it into hits. But Blue Things were an RCA band. Like I say, they'd recorded an album for RCA, and then they'd gone off in this slightly odder direction, and maybe they were still signed up to the label, and the label thought had no choice but to put it out. But I think a few months after that, they were history. But yeah, I guess it is that thing of throwing enough mud at the wall and some of it will stick, and maybe RCA thought it would work in this instance.
Slogans of rainy streets, things that can't be real. But people are scared, everyone knowing, thinking, worrying about their next meal. Rooftop smell, factory smell. this world, concrete and steel, neon reflex slogans out, rainy streets, things that can't be real. People are hurt, everyone's scurrying, thinking and worried, laughing at.
We've got Love and K Vida, and is this the album version as opposed to the single?
This is the album version. I mean, we tend to overlook it now because most of these major bands, they're based around their albums, really, their appeal. They're standing amongst collectors. But at the time, Elektra didn't really put out singles that are over 3 minutes long. They obviously had this feeling that American record stations wouldn't play it. So all kinds of things were butchered, but they don't normally, American companies don't normally add the single to the albums because it's like a 2.5 minute version of a 5 minute song. And this was the way with Love. K Vida is not a particularly lengthy song, but it was cut down to be released as a single. But if you use that, then you're then using something which is completely unsatisfactory, especially when people are familiar with the album version. So we've gone with the album version of K Vida, which means What a Life.
It does.
Apparently.
Spanish, I assume?
Well, it's from Da Capo, so I assumed it might be Italian, but I don't know. It could be. Let's say it's Mediterranean anyway.
And words, is this communicating the sounds that I've heard? The growling voice then fading, and yes, my heart was beating, or was it just repeating? A plane to travel. My mind's not made of gravel. It's dark there, they say, but that's just superstition. And in my last inspection, is this the right direction? Starts another.
So from one major name, Love, we go to the 13th Floor Elevators. She lives in a time of her own, and I mean, no compilation from that era, certainly from the American side, is truly complete without a bit of 13th Floor Elevators, because they were a group that evoked psychedelia in the early period.
Yes, I think they were the first band to have the word psychedelic on their business card, January 66, something like that anyway. And yeah, I mentioned earlier about unexpected hit singles, really, when we look back. And I mentioned the 13th Floor Elevators, and of course You're Gonna Miss Me was a fairly minor national hit. So they went back in the studio to record the second album, Easter Everywhere. And She Lives in a Time of Her Own comes from that, but lightning doesn't normally strike twice, and it was pretty much ignored. And it probably doesn't have that kind of sing-along appeal that You're Gonna Miss Me would have had.
Yeah, and just a group that now are revered despite the lack of single success.
Yeah, I can remember in the late 70s when I was kind of growing up that Rocky Erickson made an album for CBS, which was fantastic. And I think some of us got through the 13th Floor Elevators through Rocky's solo stuff, but it depends how old you are, I guess, like all these things. And so, yeah, 13th Floor Elevators, I think You're Gonna Miss Me was included on the original Nuggets in 72, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's on the original as opposed to the late 90s Rhino full CD set. I think that was on the original, and so that gave them a bit of a following outside of the country, I think, and into Europe and England. But yeah, She Lives in a Time of Her Own is a really nice song, good performance, but like I said, it doesn't have that kind of fairy dust magic that You're Gonna Miss Me had, and it didn't really make any impact at all.
So now we have The End. Gonna Send You Back to Your Mother. What a title there. So this was around the lead singer Russ Sanders?
Yeah, they were from Indiana. Initially they were known as The End with a single D, and then I think they had to change it to The End with the two Ds at the end, because there was another group called The End. Well, obviously there are several groups in England called The End, but I imagine it's a fairly common name in the mid-60s. So, yeah, this is Gonna Send You Back to Your Mother. Great song, really commercial. In fact, it reminds me a lot of late 70s Fleetwood Mac. I don't know if I should be saying that, but because there is a bit snobbery about that sort of thing. But it is kind of like, I can imagine Christine McVie or Lindsey Buckingham singing it, and it's a really commercial little song, but it only came out, like I say, on the band's own label. And that's one of the beauties of doing a set like this, that you can mix in the big names, all the ones that people are familiar with, the Monkees, we mentioned 13th Floor Elevators, Love, but you can also put in a band who just recorded a couple of local singles and haven't really been compiled before either. So, yeah, it's a bit of a kick to include that sort of thing, especially when it's this good.
And so they released a few more singles, but then would they just go back to normal life, I guess?
I think the leader of the band actually died quite early in a boating accident. So, sadly, that would have been the case for a lot of bands, that they just went back to sort of Civvy Street almost after their brush with, the pop world. But, there's slightly unusual story involved with the end, and like I say, I think the guy disappeared mysteriously while on a boating trip many years ago. So I don't quite know who else is left. We licensed it from one of the companies who licensed it from the band initially, but it's a bit of an obscure story really. But it just goes to show that you can live in obscurity, you can make a single, 2 singles, 3 singles, and think nobody's paying attention, and yet here we are sort of 56 years later, and we're playing it and including it on a new compilation.
Another big name here for the scene, the Grateful Dead and the Golden Road to Unlimited Devotion. So this was released to promote their self-titled debut album.
It was put out, when their first album came out. They made a local sort of private label single in '66, and then they'd signed with Warner Brothers. They put out their debut album, but at that stage of the game, people would have, as we just discussed earlier, there's no reason why an underground pop group like, say, Jefferson Airplane couldn't have a hit single, which they did, and I guess Warner Brothers thought, Grateful Dead, the Golden Road to Unlimited Devotion, despite the title, it's actually quite a commercial little pop song. And it did get good reviews in the trade journals in America. And like I say, it would have sounded good on the radio, but it wasn't to be. And to be honest, it's difficult to see the Grateful Dead as teen idols.
See that girl barefoot
The Seeds and March of the Flower Children. So that was this post Pushing Too Hard?
It was, yeah. They had, by this point, they had a couple of hit singles, actually. Pushing Too Hard, I think Can't Seem to Make Your Mind, I got to number 41 or something like that, but still a sizable hit single in America. And so two fairly decent-sized hits, and they went on to make a third album called Future, which was kind of their psychedelic offering, very kind of self-consciously psychedelic, I think. And it kicked off with a little spoken intro from Sky Saxon, and then it went under March of the Flower Children. And I have to be honest, we really included this track because it's such a perfect title for the box. I don't think it's one of the Seeds' best songs, if I'm honest, but it does have that kind of 1967 weirdness definitely attached to it.
It does, because in the notes there's a quote from Kim Fowley, and it does seem sort of similar in sound to some of the stuff that Kim was doing in that period as well.
Well, Kim Fowley was hanging out. Obviously, that's what he did for a living, really, hang out. And so, yeah, he knew Sky Saxon, and he knew a lot of those other guys. Michael Lloyd would be an obvious example. Interesting, and Michael Lloyd also went on to produce the Osmonds, didn't he? And he was involved with the Partridge Family. So we already mentioned Mike Appel from Balloon Farm. So yeah, a lot of them, I mean, even Kim Fowley made a record called Bubblegum. So it all kind of links together, I think. And most musicians just want to be successful as opposed to being devoted to a style of music, and I think Kim Fowley was one of those guys, and as I say, he knew the Seeds well, and so, yeah, there probably is some similarity.
Come on along and go with me back into your dreams. Come on along and go with me, travel to your time, take you anywhere it all says. Come on back and see the now. Come on along and dream with me, back in history, back a century, back to dreams with me. March, march, march with me, past the crooked forest through the field of flowers, away from all the dragons, where the sky is painted golden yellow. Come on along and go with me to the fairy castle now. Come on along and go with me back when you were a child, marching through the flowers, playing all the while, child of yesterday. It's dream, romance, a circus filled with love and clowns and animals playing round and round out there.
Now we have Lemon Drops and I Live in the Springtime, and this, again, is this one of the smaller or self-released labels?
It's one of the small labels. They were a Chicago band, and I think the song I Live in the Springtime is best known because it was on the aforementioned Rhino Nuggets box set in the late 90s. But there's an interesting story about this single. It was pressed by an entrepreneur, I think, whose younger brother was in the band, and pressed 500 copies initially, but after it was pressed, they realised that they'd left out the drum track. And it's that version which is featured on Nuggets. Whereas when they found out their mistake, they immediately repressed it with the drum track and a little bit of additional instrumentation as well, and pressed another 1,000 copies, at which point the guy who'd pressed it couldn't afford to do any more. So what we've done is we've used what is actually the second pressing, but it's actually the full version of the song, which otherwise didn't come out. So, yeah, it's quite an odd little thing and quite an odd little story, but again, a really strong song, and it does sound better with a drum track, in my opinion.
In the summer you walk on in the rain.
Tim Buckley, Morning Glory. So this was from his second album, I think?
That's right. I think the first one he pretty much disowned as he was too young. He was in awe of being in the studio, and he really got the sound he wanted on the second album, Goodbye and Hello. The first time I came across this was Morning Glory days. It was in the mid-70s when Elektra in the UK had I was still at school at that point, and Elektra had a kind of double-sided hit by each band. I think they did The Doors, Tim Buckley. I think there was a Harry Chapin single as well, which kind of like a golden oldie type series of releases. And because at that point Elektra was still almost a guarantee of quality, much in the same way that, say, in the early 70s in the UK Ireland was, then I picked up the Tim Buckley single, Morning Glory, and that was the first time I'd heard it. Like I say, it's nearly 50 years ago now. But yeah, just a wonderful song. And again, we've included 2 or 3 singer-songwriter things on this compilation, just to show the kind of breadth of talent that was in America at that point, and how all these things were kind of shaped a little bit by psychedelia and drugs, obviously in the Summer of Love, but they also had their own sound.
Tim Buckley was working with a songwriting partner in this period as well, wasn't he?
That's right. A lot of Tim Buckley's songs don't actually feature his lyrics. It's his songwriting partner who had been with him at school, I believe, at college. And on this occasion, Buckley said to him, write me a song about a hobo, and this is what he came up with. Is it Larry Beckett, was it?
Yeah, Larry Beckett.
Yeah. And Beckett came up with this lyric, and it's fabulous.
I lit my purest candle close to mine window, hoping it would catch the eye of any vagabond who passed it by. And I waited in my fleeting house. Before he came, I felt him drawing near. As he neared, I felt the ancient fear that he had come to wound my door and jeer. And I waited in my fleeting house. Tell me stories, I called to the hobo. Stories of cold, I smiled at the hobo. Stories of old, I knelt to the hobo. And he stood before my fleeting house. No, said the hobo, no more tales of time. Don't ask me now to wash away the grime. I can't come in 'cause it's too high a climb. And he walked away from my fleeting house. And you be damned, I screamed to the hobo. Leave me alone, I wept to the hobo. Turn into stone, I knelt to the hobo. And he walked away from my fleeting house.
So now we have the single version of White Light, White Heat by Velvet Underground. So this was Velvet Underground and Nico album had passed quite a few months before, but this was a number of months before the White Light, White Heat album.
Yeah, the album didn't come out until early 68, but by that point Lou Reed had kind of pushed out Nico, who was always kind of landed on them by Andy Warhol. And he'd also sacked Warhol as the group's manager. So it's just the basic four who went in to make the second album, White Light, White Heat. And that came out in January 1968. But initially, Verve pressed a single of the title track, which was pressed a couple of months earlier and sent to radio stations. Now, this is what I was saying earlier about the fact that some things would come out and they'd either be hits, unexpected hits, if you like, or complete flops, and there's no middle ground. It was very difficult, going back to things like Billboard and Record World and Cashbox, to actually find a review of White Light, White Heat. And nowadays we tend to think of the fact that, oh yeah, these magazines covered everything. If it was on a major label like Verve, they would have covered it. Well, they didn't.
Interesting.
The single is not covered anywhere in any trade journal, late 1967, early 68. And so pretty much everything I was able to find direct quotes. It's always interesting to find out what the mainstream music press thought in those days. For instance, they thought Grateful Dead might have a hit record. They thought Mother's Invention might. But the Velvet Underground weren't even covered.
Gosh.
I mean, that's staggering these days, to think that they weren't even slammed like, say, the Stooges were, or the first MC5 album. They just were ignored. So yeah, that's a bit of an eye-opener. There was literally, as far as I could tell anyway, there was no review of the release of the single White Light, White Heat. So yeah, again, some people I think have thought that this is a Flower Power compilation, and it's not a Flower Power compilation, because clearly the Velvet Underground and the Mothers of Invention, people like Everly Brothers, who we'll come on to, they're not Flower Power bands. It's just how Flower Power affected psychedelia, drugs, whatever, the burgeoning rock underground press, if you like, how it all came together and had almost like congealed into one whole that had so many different elements to it.
White light going missing up my mind. White light, don't you know gonna make me go blind. Oh, white heat, it tickle me down to my toes. Ooh, have mercy, white light have it, goodness knows. White light going missing up my brain. Oh, white light is gonna drive me insane. Oh, white heat, it tickle me down to my toes. Oh, white light, I said now, goodness knows, do it. I surely do love watch that stuff drip itself in. Watch that side, don't you know, gonna be dead and bright. Bad foxy mama walks down the street. White light, come upside your head, gonna make a dead ache on your street. White light moving me, clean my brain. White light gonna make you go insane. Oh, white heat, it tickle me down to my toes. Oh, white light, I said now, goodness knows. Oh, white light is lighting up my eyes. Don't you know it fills me up with surprise. Oh, white heat, tickle me down to my toes. Oh, white light, I tell you now, goodness knows the worker. White light, oh, she surely do move speed. Watch that speed freak, ever gonna go and make it every week. Oh, split a mother, everybody gonna kill a mother. Here comes, everybody get it, gonna make me run to it.
We go from the Velvet Underground to Tommy Roe and Paisley Dreams, and this is this wonderful period where Tommy Roe's material evolves into gentle psychedelia.
Yeah, it just goes to show how we're affected by names, really. We've gone from the Velvet Underground to Tommy Roe, which on on one level, it's absolutely ludicrous. But on the other hand, he was working with Kurt Bircher, who's as respected these days in some quarters as the Velvet Underground are. Bircher did 2 albums with Tommy Roe, and that included Paisley Dreams, which has got sitar on it and everything, and it's a gorgeous flower power thing. But it wasn't a hit, and Tommy Roe said the American equivalent of Sod This for Game of Soldiers, and he went and recorded Dizzy instead, and Heather Honey, and one or two others. Jam Up Jelly Type, all that sort of thing. And I love those bubblegum things, but it's interesting how you can say, okay, that's not a hit, I'm going to try something completely different, which is how he got into kind of flower power in the first place, I guess. Because there's a much more of a lineage from Sheila and Sweet Pea to Heather Honey and Dizzy than there is. Paisley Dreams is kind of outlier almost.
But he's releasing some fantastic albums as well.
Yeah, like I say, those 2 albums from that time, 67, done with Kurt Bircher and also his kind of regular sidemen like Sandy Salisbury, people like that. So yeah, it was just, I would imagine that Tommy Roe's name might have been a slight drawback in terms of getting critical appeal in the way that, say, the Millennium or Sagittarius do these days.
We're only on film, revealing to you what I see in them. You'd thrill to falling from a star and softly touching down. You'll look to see just where you are in the crystal world you found. Paisley dreams, come and join me in my paisley dreams, and share the cloud that carries me into this fairy land, and fill your cup with what you see in a painter's outstretched hand. Is easy to find. The key is your mind. So be like a child, pretend for a while, and you'll see the beauty of Paisley dreams. Paisley dreams, come and join me in my paisley dreams, and share the cloud that carries me into this fairy land, and fill your cup with what you see in a painter's outstretched hand.
Red Crayola and Hurricane Fighter Plane, so that they were a Texas group?
Yeah, like 13th Floor Elevators, they were from Texas, and a lot of their material is, shall we say, quite challenging. But this, I saw this described as the closest an American band got in 1967 to the first Pink Floyd album, and you can see kind of similarities there. And on top of that, it's got Rocky Erickson playing organ on this track. It came from the album Parable of Arable Land, and like I say, that's a harder, more difficult listen than this track is.
But that's the benefit of having a compilation. You can pick these gems out.
Yeah, I have that one. I'll ignore everything else. I'll have this and I'll have that. Thank you very much.
Pocket a hurricane fighter plane, and it takes me where I want to go. Doesn't matter whether or not it rains. It's my hurricane, old fighter plane I love, and it takes me where I want to go. Through the sky above, through the sky above, through the clouds of love. There's one thing, my baby, that I know I must do for you, and it's the only thing that I know how to do. It's my hurricane, old fighter plane, and it's mine, and it takes us through the sky all the time, all the time, all the time.
So we had Tommy Rowe earlier, so now we have the Everly Brothers and Mary Jane, and I assume they weren't singing necessarily about a woman.
No, it is kind of pretty obvious, and you do wonder, again, looking back, you think, well, were you really expecting the radio to play that? But that was from the Everly Brothers Sing, which is their quasi-psychedelic album. It's got their version of Whiter Shade of Pale on it. It's also got a great track, a pre-Nirvana Patrick Campbell Lyons song called Finding It Rough. But Mary Jane was written by their English bass player. And again, it's pretty obvious what they're singing about, the redemptive powers of marijuana. And I guess it's no different than Tommy Rowe, moving with the times. If you don't move with the times, you're yesterday's news. If you do move with the times, then you're kind of sometimes laughed at for being, you know, an old man who's trying to jump on the bandwagon. But again, on its own merits, this stands as a really strong single.
It's Bowling Green that was from that period that was a minor hit, wasn't it?
Bowling Green was the single before Mary Jane, and that was a hit, and they obviously thought, right, we're back in fashion. What are we going to do now? So they recorded Mary Jane, like I say, it's written by their bass player, and maybe they thought that would get them sort of in vogue with the young hip kids out there. I don't know, or maybe they were just bored and wanted to push the boat out a little bit. But like I say, it certainly stands up well on its own merits, and it's if it weren't for the lyrics, I think it might well have been a top 40 hit.
Terry Slater's an interesting figure because he went on to work with a-ha. He was the one who...
Oh, did he?
Who discovered them and went off to manage them.
Oh, right. Okay, we never know where people will end up, I guess. But I think the Everly Brothers had picked him up when they were touring in England, 64, 65, something like that. So they come over here to do the Two Yanks in England album with members of the Hollies. So I assume that's how he came into like the Everly Brothers fold. But maybe that should be another compilation. Names that meant nothing at the time but went on to be highly successful behind the scenes.
Clouds so sweet cloud my mind, girl, and I don't know what way I'll go, girl, but I don't fear no more. I've got my Mary Jane, and I'm secure once more. I've got my Mary Jane in the light of things gone past, girl. The darkness closed and the curtains closed, girl, but I don't fear no more. I've got my Mary Jane, and I'm secure once more. I've got my Mary Jane.
We finished the set with one of the big hits, Young Rascals and Grooving.
Yeah, whenever people talk about the Summer of Love, they always talk about A White Shade of Pale, or All You Need Is Love, or White Rabbit in America. And to me, this has kind of been almost like forgotten. And it was a massive hit everywhere as an American chart topper, big hit over here and in Europe. And apparently Jerry Wexler, who was the boss of Atlantic at the time, didn't want to put it out as a single because it was so different from what they'd done in the past. But because they'd been that kind of blue-eyed soul kind of thing, Good Lovin' is probably the one that's best known over here. But Groovin does have a different feel, and I guess you can understand the label head guy saying, don't know, this is a bit of a change of style. To me, it's one of the singles that is most evocative of 1967. Like I say, even though it hasn't gone down in the public consciousness quite as readily as A Wider Shade of Pale or All We Need Is Love. But it's a great song.
So 4 hours of fantastic material digging into 1967 over in the United States, March of the Flower Children. Thank you so much for your time, David.
No, pleasure.
As we often know, one of the best years ever in music, and this set continues to prove that.
Yeah, I mean, having the chance to do a 1967 set of American music, you think, well, great, where do I start almost? And we were lucky that the bigger labels played ball with most of what we wanted. Wasn't much we missed out on, and obviously we have other smaller labels who represent more obscure stuff as well. So we were able to put together a pretty definitive set of that year. You know, if you're a collector and you like that kind of underground rock music coming to the fore. I mean, apart from what we've discussed, we got, I think, Steppenwolf and Vanilla Fudge to show that year kind of as things got a bit heavier as well. So, yeah, I think we covered most bases with it, and it was really a lot of fun to do, definitely.
Thank you very much. Let's listen to Young Rascals and Groovin'.
Okay, bye.
Groovin' on a Sunday afternoon. Really couldn't get away too soon. I can't imagine anything that's better. The world is ours whenever we're together. There ain't a place I like to be instead of moving down a crowded avenue. Anything we like to do. There's always lots of things that we can see. We can be anyone we'd like to be. All those happy people we could meet just moving on a Sunday afternoon. Get away too soon. No, 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 no. We'll keep on spending sunny days this way. We're gonna talk and laugh our time away. I feel it coming closer day by day. Life would be ecstasy, you and me endlessly moving on a Sunday afternoon. Really couldn't get away too soon. No, 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 no.
Thank you for listening to the Strange Brew podcast. If you do like the show, please consider a small donation to help keep the show archive online. It's 10 years since I started the podcast, and hosting fees are increasing over time. All your support keeps the show running and helps me get amazing guests. To support me, just go to thestrangebrew.co.uk where you'll see a donate button on the homepage. Thank you very much. Plus, any reviews on your podcast services help to spread the word too. Thank you.